Welcome to episode 2 of Beer with Alan. I'm Alan and I've had over 3,400 different beers since I started tracking back in 2014. I use the app called Untapped to track, so look me up there under Beer with Alan to see the beers that I've tried. Send me a friend request on there if you're interested. So I just want to thank everyone who listened to the first episode of this podcast. The feedback has been really great and I'm really appreciative of that. I plan to keep bringing these to you, so I hope you'll keep listening. This week, we're going to have a guest on to talk some beer. I wanted to start with something fun, so I've invited my friend Ron on to reveal our top beers in several different categories. I've known Ron for almost 30 years, and he's the one who first introduced me to Belgian beer when he gave me a Chimay many years ago. Before we get to the interview, let's talk about what's going on right now. As far as my current beer drinking goes, I wanted to give you some updated data there. My current beer count is 3,434. So, made a little progress from before. It's still looking to me like I'm going to hit number 3,500 right around sometime during my trip to Belgium, which is going to happen in about a month. So I'm not sure when or where during that trip, but as I get closer, I'll definitely keep you guys updated. The best beer that I had this past week was one called Planifolia Pur by Horace Aged Ales from Oceanside, California. This is a really sought-after brewery that I know all their ratings are extremely high. Their beers are expensive. They're difficult to get. They're rare, mostly barrel-aged stuff. And I've had a few of them, and they've all been really good. But this is the best one I've had so far. This is an Imperial Stout aged for 3 years in Pappy Van Winkle bourbon barrels with a whole lot of vanilla from the Congo. It's 12.9% ABV. Really smooth, really delicious. I think the balance in this one was the best I've had from these folks. I think I'm going to get to meet the guy behind it out at Firestone Walker this weekend, so I'm excited for that. For a running update, I always like to highlight a recent good or fun run that I've had on Sunday, which is when I do my long runs. My whole running schedule, I often go to the same places on the same days of the week. So there's a park I go to every Tuesday. I kind of rotate through those places. On Sundays, I try to change it up a little bit because it's a longer run, but I have a set of places that I tend to go to. And as it gets warmer, I tend to try to stick to places that are pretty flat. Hilly runs are always difficult, and doing them in the heat is obviously a bigger challenge. I joke all the time about getting older and trying to deal with running in the heat and humidity. We've had some warm days lately. Adding in the hills is just not something I really look forward to. So I was out at the Schuylkill River Trail, which runs obviously all along the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia and the suburbs. I've done this run a whole bunch of times, but what I did for this one, this was a 10-mile run. And what I did was I started at a different spot than usual, and I went in a different direction than I often do for this sort of run. So this took me from just outside of Conshohocken through Norristown and all the way to the edge of the Valley Forge Park before I turned around and went back. It was a really good run. It was perfect weather for me, honestly. This one wasn't that warm. It was high 50s. It was cloudy. And even though I ran in the afternoon, which is also something I generally avoid, I tend to feel like I get tired quickly running in the afternoon. But this was a great run. I felt strong all the way through it. There weren't a ton of people out there because the weather wasn't that great, but it was a really nice run. I had no struggles at all, set a decent pace, and was very happy with it. Another thing that was different is I'm usually a podcast listener. During my runs, every once in a while, I'll listen to music. In this case, because it was the afternoon, the Phillies were playing. And so I had Sirius XM radio on my phone, and I just listened to the Phillies game for the entire time that I was running. And that made for a really nice run. For an update on my next marathon plans, I'm still kicking around 2 different races. One is at Kiowa Island down in South Carolina, just outside of Charleston on the coast. And the other is in Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. I have done both of these races before. I've talked about them a little bit before on my videos, and I might have mentioned them in last week's podcast. I'm not sure yet which one I want to do. They're both really nice races. Kiowa Island is obviously a little bit more of exotic of a trip for me. We'll head down to Charleston. I love the city of Charleston. I would get to spend some time there while we're there. It's a really nice race. It's a private island there on Kiowa Island. Lots of beautiful homes and golf courses and all to run through. It's a really nice place. Fair chance of it being reasonably warm for that race, maybe too warm, and that's a question. Rehoboth is one of my favorite beach towns. Just a great place. A bunch of breweries down in that area too, with Dogfish Head right there in Rehoboth Beach, and their brewery just outside in Milton. There's in the next town south, Dewey Beach. There's the Dewey Brewery, which makes great stuff. I got to visit there last time I was there. So I look forward to seeing those places if we choose to do Rehoboth. When I did that race before, it was really cold. It was below freezing for much of the time, which presents some different challenges. I like running in the cold, but standing around for an hour or so before the race in the cold, your body does a lot of work to try to keep you warm. So you start off maybe a little more tired than you would want to otherwise. So I haven't decided yet which one of those races I'm going to do, but I'll keep you guys updated. I'm pretty sure it will be one of those two. In the world of sports and the teams that I love, things are going okay. I made a video recently about how this is a rougher time of year because there are a lot fewer team sports happening out there. But, I'll follow what I can. The Phillies, I'm a big Philadelphia Phillies fan. The pitching has been unbelievable for this Phillies team. If you're a Phillies fan, you got to be happy with that. There hasn't been much hitting, so they should be winning a lot more games than they are, but they're still hanging in there. They're right about second place in the division, certainly looking a lot better than they did earlier in the season. But Wheeler has been amazing. Sanchez has been amazing. Luzardo has pitched quite well. Andrew Painter did really well last time out, and even Aaron Nola managed a good outing last night. So it's nice to see the pitching so good. Harper's hitting really well. They moved Trey Turner out of the leadoff spot last night, and he had a good game. So maybe that's a solution for them going forward. Leeds United had their final match of the season the other day. It ended up being sort of a dud against West Ham. The game didn't matter for Leeds. It mattered a lot for West Ham, who needed to win and needed Tottenham to lose in order for West Ham to not be relegated. West Ham did win, but Tottenham won as well. So West Ham is headed down out of the Premier League to the Championship, which is a shame for them. But Leeds, fortunately, is staying up. Looking forward to next season. I'm going to a friendly match, Leeds, and I don't even remember who they're playing. Sunderland. I said the name wrong. Next in July, I think it is. So I'm excited for that. I have never been to a Leeds match in person. I can't wait to go, even if it's one that doesn't really count. The Philadelphia Union continued to struggle in a huge way. They played the other night. They were crushed by Miami and Messi. And now they remain in last place. Now they're on the World Cup break. So it's going to be a while before this team can try to turn it around. I really hope they do in the next part of the season, because this team is traditionally very good. And at the moment, they're not good at all. I mentioned my upcoming trip. I'm going out to the Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival this weekend. Headed out tomorrow out to Paso Robles, California. My daughter, who lives in LA, is going to come up and spend some time with me there, which I'm really excited for. And I'm going to get to go to this event, which is going to be filled with great breweries from around the world. Going to get to meet a lot of brewers, hopefully meet a lot of listeners and followers to my socials. So I'm excited for that. But I'm going to get to drink a lot of really good beer. So I'm especially excited for that. I saw the list of beers that are going to be at this thing, and it just blew me away. Really exciting, really tremendous opportunity to taste a lot of great stuff, a lot of stuff I haven't had before. So I'm very excited for that. I will bring you content from it while I'm there and afterwards. So stay tuned for that. So I have a close group of friends that are all into beer. And we've got a group text that goes all the time. It's filled with just photos of people's beer, whatever people are happen to be drinking at that point, sending it to the others, letting it, letting everybody know what you're drinking so we can talk about it or make jokes about it or whatever it happens to be. I was thinking about having them on to do a sort of a top five, each of our top five beers, and just to go through all of that. But because our tastes are so similar, I realized it might not bring as much variety as I had hoped, so I changed gears. Instead, I invited my friend Ron to talk about our favorite beers in each of a few styles. I've known Ron for a very long time, and while my interest in beer predates me knowing him by a long way, he was the one who first introduced me to Belgian beer, which is really most of my favorite beers are Belgian. Years ago, I think it was a Chimay Red, wasn't it, Ron? It was
That
definitely a Chimay. I think it was a
definitely
red.
makes sense.
Yeah, and I had never tasted anything like it, and so my journey began at that point toward loving Belgian beer, and it will eventually get me to Belgium itself about a month from right now for the first time. Excited for that. But
I'm
anyway,
jealous.
let's. um, so Ron, how you doing?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here and doing what you love to do, which is talk about beer. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I certainly spend enough time doing it. That's for sure. So what I thought we'd do, and we talked about this in advance, is go through our favorite beer styles, and or at least my favorite beer styles, but I'm pretty sure they're right there for you as well. Um, and talk about our top beer in each of those categories. Now, a word for the audience. These may not be your favorite styles, but if you watch my videos, you know these are the kinds of beer that I talk about all the time. Um, you'll notice that of the five styles that we talk about, four of them are generally dark in color and strong in flavor. All five of them are strong in flavor. But so we're going to talk about Belgian quads, Belgian triples, barley wines, stouts, and doppelbocks. So we've got really two Belgian styles, two English styles, and a German style. So we're covering at least going beyond just a single country there. But these beers can be from anywhere in the world. They don't have to be from those countries. They don't have to be American. They can be from wherever. I'm going to start off first, and
Awesome.
I'm gonna start with the Belgian quad. So this is sometimes called a Belgian strong dark. I've yet to actually figure out if some people think that Belgian strong dark and Belgian quad aren't necessarily exactly the same thing, but uh, I pretty much treat them as interchangeable.
Yeah, you often see them with a slash, or you see them described similarly. But when they're the Belgian monastery beers, you generally see that they're called quads.
Yeah, although the Belgian strong dark name predates the quad name, I
Sure.
think the first one to ever call itself a quadruple was La Trappe, which is one of the original Trappist monasteries, but actually not Belgian. They're actually Dutch. Um, I'm sure you know this. I'm telling the audience.
Awesome.
um, anyway, the audience, again, if they watch my videos, I have talked very regularly about my very favorite beer in the world, which is a quad, which is St. Bernardus Apt 12. Um, they St. Bernardus has a whole line of beers. They're all fantastic. The Apt 12 is a 10% quad. I first had it at a restaurant near me called Iron Abbey, which opened back in 2009. And back then, they had really helpful bartenders and waiters and all who all knew about all of the beer that they were carrying. And one of the bartenders recommended that beer to me, and I've loved it ever since. Uh,
That's awesome because it is one of the best beers in the world, and it happens to be my favorite beer of all time. So, as you led off talking about how there would be commonality and we would match too much stuff, but on this one for sure we're going to have to match because it is a fantastic beer. And you said you had it at Iron Abbey. I had the pleasure of drinking this in Belgium. Now, I didn't I didn't go to the brewery, St. Bernardus Brewery, but I think that's where you're going in
I
a couple
am.
weeks, right?
Yeah,
So
and yeah, wait, we're so excited for that. We're going to get to stay at the guest house at the brewery, and yeah, it should be a special thing.
that's awesome. But it's a fantastic beer, super malty, delicious, strong but not overpowering. And every time I drink one, I say the same thing. Why is it that I ever drink anything else? It should be the only beer I drink because it's so good that I always want another one.
Yeah, yeah. I think my usual comment as soon as I start drinking it is every beer should taste like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found out something very recently. There's on the bottle of St. Bernardus is a monk holding a beer, and every 1,000th beer has a winking monk.
Eh, That is true. I became aware of it sometime during this past year, and I have not yet come across a bottle with a winking monk, but I have looked for it.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
gonna have to start keeping my eye on that because I never realized that before, but it's like an Easter egg out there just waiting to be found.
Yeah, it's fun. I can't wait to see that brewery and check it out. Just as a note, since we agreed on this beer, one thing that people might not know, some people know, certainly people in Belgium know, is that Saint Bernardus started brewing this beer. I think it was in the 50s. They took over the brewing from the Westvleteren Abbey, which is just a few minutes away from where the Saint Bernardus Brewery is. Um, in Western Flanders in Belgium. And so they used the same recipe, and they had originally the house yeast from Westvleteren because the monks, very small monastery, only 11 monks, um, they felt like the beer was distracting them from their job as monks, and they farmed out the brewing of their beer for 30 some years, I think,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit longer, and
Yeah,
eventually decided to start doing it again. And so now we get both beers, which
yeah, it was
is
called,
amazing.
Saint Sixtus was the name of
Yeah.
the brewery, and it was a cheese. I think it was a cheese, like a fromagerie that made cheese, and they, sublet it or outsourced the beer making to them. And, there's lots of laws in Belgium about, monasteries and calling beer Trappist, and they've changed the laws over time. So St. Bernardus isn't officially a Trappist beer, but it certainly tastes like one.
Right, and the Westvleteren 12, which is remarkably similar to the Saint Bernardus Abt 12, at one point was considered the best beer in the world, and an incredibly rare beer that you still can mostly only get at the monastery. I'm going to visit there next month as well, um, which I'm excited for. But I've had that beer twice. Once brought back by Ron's wife, brought back from Belgium,
Correct.
yeah, and the other time brought back by my daughter, who was on a trip there, and she knew I loved that beer, and I couldn't get it, so she brought it back for me.
Yeah, and I would
I'm
have considered putting West Lettern 12 on here because because when I had it, it was unbelievable. But I haven't had it enough to be able to determine whether it is the same, whether it's identical, whether I've had I've had St. Bernardus out of a tap. I've had it out of a bottle. I've had it in a Magnum. I shared a Magnum with you before. Uh,
That's right. That
so
was I had aged that one for 9 years before we drank it.
yeah. So I've had it enough to know what it is and what it tastes like, and know that it's the my favorite beer.
Yeah. All right. So on to the next one. I'm going to go next to the barley wine. And again, the people who follow me, who watch my videos and all, I was joking earlier today that I've talked more about barley wine than anyone in the history of the internet. It, Apt 12 may be my favorite beer, but my favorite style of beer is barley wine. I love it. I seek it out all the time. There are pretty dramatically different versions of this. There's the normal English barley wine, and then there's American barley wine. American barley wine tends to be a lot hoppier than the English varieties. But they're not all that way. And by American barley wine, you can certainly get a barley wine made in the US that is an English style barley wine. So it's really what style they're going for. My favorite barley wine is from a brewery that is very local to me, and it's called Forest and Main. And these guys are famous for their saisons mostly. They make good IPAs. They make good everything. Really, all of their stuff is great quality. Back in 2023, they made an English barley wine called Reflections of Reality, which was 12%, nice and strong, fantastic beer. I still have one of them aging that I'm saving for some special day. Really great beer. Like the quads, barley wines are really malty, but there's definitely a different flavor profile to a barley wine than there is to a quad. Quads are generally a lot sweeter. They're both higher in alcohol, but barley wine is just such a unique flavor, and I really love it.
Yeah, you're right. Barley wine really is a unique flavor. I think that's the best way to describe it. And you're the king of barley wines. I know you love barley wines. You love barrel barley wines. You love, whenever you can get your hand on a barley wine. I've never been anywhere with you where if there was a barley wine available, you didn't go for that first.
Yeah.
Super strong. I have had plenty of them, but I haven't had the volume you have. Um, a barley wine that I had, which is from Philadelphia, and is I don't know if they outsource. I don't know if you can get this beer outside of even the brewery, but Attic Brewing did I guess it was an anniversary beer, the fifth anniversary. It was a barrel aged barley wine. It's called Year Five, and it was absolutely stupendous. It was just I had yeah I was trying to figure out how to get back there as soon as possible, and I think it was a couple months later. I was just I created some story of how we needed to go to this. It's on the outskirts of Philadelphia, and I figured out a way to get there so that I could get this beer again. Just absolutely delicious. The barrel aging only enhanced the flavor of the barley wine, and while barley wines, there are breweries that have barley wines. I think that are accessible. Comus is one, a Polish brewery that makes a barley wine that's very accessible and very good. And if you ever want to try a barley wine, you probably can find that one. Alan, you probably know some of the larger, more available barley wines, but um, if you're at a small batch brewery and they have a barley wine, at least make sure you taste it. You might go, "Oh my God, what is this?" But you got to taste it.
Yeah, like the barley wine I think of that is easiest to find is an American style barley wine. It is Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada, which
And now I
you
find
see in a
that
lot of
very
places.
hoppy.
But well, I said it's an American style barley wine. It is very hoppy. So if you have, out there, if you've tried a barley wine and you're not into hoppy beer and you tried Bigfoot, you didn't like it, try an English barley wine. Very different experience. I like Bigfoot. I think it's very good, but it's almost a completely different beer than you'll find in an English barley wine. As far as Attic Brewing, I love Attic Brewing. Everything they make is really good. I know I was with you there that first time you had Year Five. Um, and it's a fantastic beer. That my story about that beer was the first time I had it. I drank it on tap. They had cans. I bought several cans, intending to put them away and age them. And within a couple of months, I had drank them all because I liked it so much that I didn't want to wait. So yeah,
That's an endorsement, because you have a lot of choices of what to drink, and if you're not waiting to drink your aged beer, that really says a lot about that.
yeah, that's a great one. All right, so now let's go to stouts. This is a
That
huge category
that
because,
is a huge category.
well, I always say, the people who talk about IPAs, and there are people who say I don't like IPAs, and I'm like, you know what? Like, subcategories. There's like 25 different styles of IPA. Well, there's probably 25 different styles of stout too. It's really kind of amazing. So just to say my favorite stout is it feels so broad,
Yeah.
but
The other thing about stouts, sorry to interrupt, is
yeah, no, no
really like
problem.
people think of them as a winter beer, or like, I want to drink it when it's cold outside and it's dark, and like there are a lot of stouts. Guinness, for example, has less alcohol than a Miller Lite. Like they're not always strong beers, but people equate them as being strong.
Yeah, I have that discussion with my wife all the time. She thinks that stouts, she thinks Guinness is strong, and I've always said it's dark, and so it kind of makes you think that it's strong, but it's almost like like a stout light beer, because it's also not a very strong, thick flavor, like a lot of stouts are. Guinness is very kind of easy drinking.
I can drink a stout on a 90-degree day and not have a problem with it.
Yeah, and most of the beer I'm drinking is inside anyway, so I like what I like. All right, so I've introduced stouts. Ron, why don't you talk about your favorite stout first?
Okay, as you said, a gigantic category. Probably the beer style, you know, aside from lager, because I've drank so many of them over the years, probably my go-to style. If I see a stout, I'm ordering a stout. I like the roastiness of them. I like the just the fullness of a stout. Um, when you talk about there's like the Goose Island bourbon counties are hard to discount as being, fantastic beers. Founders has a KBS style and a CBS style, which are
Mm,
amazing. But the
yeah.
stout that I've had fairly recently, I didn't have this until this year, is from Brooklyn Brewing, and it's called Black Ops, and it's a barrel aged stout. Four Roses, which is a Kentucky bourbon brand, uh, aged in Four Roses barrels. And what's really cool about it is that it's re-fermented, so they add champagne yeast at the end. It's re-fermented, which gives it a carbonation that a lot of stouts. Some stouts are thin. Obviously, Guinness has a head on it, but a lot of stouts aren't. Carbonated and don't have that extra little bit of flavor to it. So I really love this beer. I can't have enough of this.
Yeah, it's a great one. I love that beer. I had that. So a couple years ago, my daughter got married in Brooklyn, in a hotel that was directly across the street from the Brooklyn Brewery, and I drank that beer at the brewery the afternoon before the wedding happened. So that was yeah, really, really fantastic beer, and from another real classic brewery that does a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, I haven't made it there with, I've made trips to New York. We're not that far away from New York, but I've never been to their brewery. And now that if that's there and I can drink this beer there, I need to make a trip.
Well, it was there 2 years ago. Well, I'm
I'll
not
ch-
sure if it's
I'll
still
check
there.
the menu.
Yeah. For my favorite stout, I've got one that is from a big brewery with sort of especially just like Goose Island has their Bourbon County brand as sort of a sub brand underneath Goose Island. New Holland Brewing from Michigan has their Dragon's Milk brand, and they have a whole bunch of different varieties of Dragon's Milk. The standard one is a barrel aged stout, and then they have various adjuncts that they mix in. There's like a sort of a oatmeal cookie version of it, and there's a whole bunch of those kind of things. But they also make one every year in the early part of the year. It comes out called Triple Mash, And this is one of those sort of crazy strong beers. The recipe changes every year, so the ABV changes every year. The 2024 version um, was I made my video at the end of the year, my countdown that I do each year. That was my number one beer of the year in 2024, the Dragon's Milk Triple Mash. It was 18.7%. So yeah, it'll hit you good. I've had the 2025 and 2026 versions of them, and I liked them a lot. But the 2024 one just stood out. It was just better. I really loved everything about that beer. The depth of flavor. I love when you can pick out individual flavors in these things as opposed to them all just sort of being a mash. Well, mash, that's the name of the beer. But sometimes it all just sort of swamps together and you kind of can't tell much of what's going on. But this thing, each sip seemed to bring a different flavor. And
Yeah,
I'm just a big fan of it.
absolutely. I've had that beer. I've had too much of that beer, which is really just one bottle. Is not too much to enjoy, but too much for your head. It's a sipping beer, and what's interesting about it is the flavors definitely change. You're going to take it out of your refrigerator, and it's going to taste like one thing, and as you sip it. It drinks like a wine. It drinks like a cognac. It's got such a high alcohol to it, and it's kind of viscous is maybe the right word. It's got a kind of a thickness to it,
Hmm.
but a good thickness, like and it sticks to your tongue and it sticks to the glass. It's really and especially compared to the other Dragon's Milks. If you've had one of the other Dragon's Milks and you're like, oh, okay, I've had that beer, I'm gonna have this one. It's very different, and it's different in alcohol level and just different in taste and flavor. Really, really fine beer.
Yeah, I agree totally.
That's a good choice.
All right, so we've got left the triple and the doppelbock. Why don't you go first? Tell me your favorite triple.
Okay, so I think you mentioned, Alan, that that I'm a Belgian beer fan, and I had the pleasure of sharing with you my love of Belgian beers. Obviously, the quad is an important Belgian style, but the triple is certainly a classic Belgian style. Uh, Much different. You think of if you think of the single, the double, the triple. The doubles are generally dark, the quads are generally dark, and then right in the middle is a triple that's blonde, that's pale, and but it's high in alcohol, and the thing I love about triples is candy sugar, like the taste of, you kind of get a cotton candy taste in your mouth sometimes. It's sweet. It's generally carbonated because of the bottle aging process, and it's a great style. I just love them. They go great with food. They're fantastic pairing
Yeah,
beers.
agreed.
And the one that I've chosen as my favorite is from Unibrew in Quebec, in Chambly, Quebec, and it's the Le Fin de Mon. Um, it is a fine beer. It is a great example of a triple. It's not from Belgium, but Unibrew is famous for Belgian style beers outside of Belgium. There are a lot of great examples of Belgian triples, and I could have picked any of them, but I just had to go with the Unibrew, or the Unibrew Le Fin de Mon. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing beer, and they're a fantastic brewery. I love them. I pretty much everything they make is great. You really kind of can't go wrong with any of their beers. And you know, I I suspected that that was going to be your favorite. It is also my favorite. I also came prepared to talk about another beer, just in case that one was your favorite. Um, and It's De Gara from Belgium, from Van Steenbergen Brewing. This is a really special beer that is made for one specific bar that's in Bruges. That apparently is on what they call the smallest street in Bruges, or the smallest alley in Bruges. Apparently, it's hard to find. I don't know. Again, I'll be there next month. I'm excited to be there. Um, but this beer is made specifically for this bar. It's served in a glass that's made just for it, a really kind of cool globe kind of glass with a big thick bottom on it, and it's
You need
served
one of
with a,
those.
yeah, I do. I'm going to get one. Um, it's served with a very specific cheese that's made to go with it. And the interesting thing is, I said it's made specifically for this place, and generally you can only get it there. And I haven't been there, so how have I had it? Well, I am fortunate in that for a long time there was only one other place in the world where you could get this beer regularly on draft, and it was at Teresa's Next Door in Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is my favorite restaurant. I've been going there for years. I get that beer almost every time I'm there. They serve it with the actual cheese that you're supposed to have with it in the real glass. Fantastic beer. Also found this past year that you could get it at Jessop's in Newcastle, Delaware.
Yeah.
Another great place filled with great Belgian beer and all other
That's where
kinds of beer as well.
that's where I was able to drink it. I didn't have the cheese with it, but
Yeah, they
it
didn't do the cheese at Jessop's,
I did
but
get to drink it, and of course, it was in the proper glass, as any Belgian beer should be.
yep, absolutely. That one's stronger than Le Fen du Monde in that it's 11% ABV versus the 9% of Le Fen du Monde. But
Probably
they're both,
about as high as you're going to see with a non-barrel aged triple. Barrel aged
yeah,
triples are rare to find, but I am starting to see them now a little bit more.
yeah. The Allagash makes a great one. The Curio,
Curio,
if you've
yeah,
ever had that one, yeah, that's a really good beer. Okay, so our last style is the Doppelbock, and I'm a big fan of Doppelbocks. It's a great German style. Um, there are a lot of really traditional old beers that have been made for hundreds and hundreds of years in Germany, old Doppelbocks that are still just as good as they ever were, I assume, because they're still great. Um, but in this case, I'm actually kind of, breaking an unspoken rule here too, and choosing a Doppelbock that is from the United States, from Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact. Trogs Brewing in Hershey, Pennsylvania. They their core beer, the beer they're most famous for, is a Doppelbock called Troganator, and they have a special version of this that they've made a few times in the last few years called Triple Nader, which is a much stronger version of the Troganator. Um, I had it first maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and bought some more when I was out there this past year. They made a barrel aged version of it as well, the bourbon barrel aged, but I actually prefer the regular Triple Nader. It's not lacking in strength. It's 11.5%, I believe. So, very strong, very distinct flavor, a little bit different than your traditional Doppelbock, a little thicker, a little stronger in flavor, but I love it. It's my favorite.
that's an awesome choice. I actually did a side by side tasting test with the Triple Nader and the Bourbon Barrel Triple Nader because I wanted to see how differently they taste. And I'm not great at tasting something and then 3 months later having something else and being able to compare the two. I'm really good at give me both of them. Let me put them next to each other. Let me take one sip of this one. Let me take one sip of this one, and I can do a really good comparison. And I did that with the Triple Nader and the Bourbon Barrel. And while I often like Bourbon Barrel versions better, the Triple Nader, regular Triple Nader, just had so much flavor and was so true to the style, but with a little bit of oomph um, that I definitely preferred that. But Trojanator is absolutely one of my favorite beers. It's an absolute go-to. It comes in cans. It's 7.5% beer. You drink out of a can. It's fantastic. And
It is.
they also have a little Nader, which is about 5% maybe. And
Yeah,
it
it's a light
doesn't.
one.
It might be more like a. I don't know that it's more like a Maibach style.
I think it is a Maibach, actually. Yeah.
And while we talk about Maibachs, I mentioned Maibachs, Dead Guy. I remember you raising a glass to the last Dead Guy. It's a beer that I absolutely love, and I'm sorry that Rogue is no longer. I'm sorry that beer is no longer. That was always in my refrigerator. Always, always, always.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great one.
But we're talking about Doppelbocks, and my favorite is actually a German one, and it's Einger's Celebrator. I think it's as classic as you can get with a Doppelbock. It's definitely a world class beer, world class example of a Doppelbock, and it's readily available. I've had it on tap, which if I ever see it on tap, I definitely always get it because it's a fantastic beer, easily drinkable. Has a little like caramel notes to it, toffee notes to it, just delicious flavor for a beer that has pretty reasonably high alcohol, and uh, and it's interesting because Paulaner has the Salvatore beer, which I
Yeah.
believe is
Sort of
officially
like the
the
original one. Yeah.
original.
Yeah.
And they kept that naming convention, that ATOR, which is where Trojanator gets its ATOR name. It's a paying homage to Salvatore. But I've had Salvatore. I've had Spaten has one.
Hmm.
Optimator,
Yep.
and then Iyengar's Celebrator, and I think that's the best. Plus, unfortunately, they don't do it anymore. But you used to get a Celebrator bottle. You'd get a little ram. There would be like an ornament on
Oh,
the
right.
bottle. So
Yeah.
every year we make a little Christmas tree and we hang all of our hundreds of rams from it that we've collected over the years because it's a beer that I drink pretty regularly.
Yeah, that's a great one. I can't argue with that at all. That's a classic and really like sort of an ideal example of this style. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
can drink that all the time.
Awesome. All right. Well, this was fun. I want to thank you, Ron, for coming on and sharing all your beer thoughts with us. And you know, I'm sure we will continue to talk beer on a regular basis.
Thanks. I appreciate being part of the show, and I enjoy watching you and now listening to you. So keep up the great content, and I look forward to being back again someday.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview and our rankings. It was a fun conversation with my friend Ron. I'll be trying to bring these podcasts to you regularly. So subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified when a new podcast is dropped. I hope to bring another one to you next week. Have a great week, everybody.